You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to thank all colleagues who tabled up, thank them for the contribution to the text. It was not possible due to the Green Week to organize a shadow meeting on this important file, but via our staff we are in contact, and I believe that in the end we'll have a good text. I will like to comment a little bit on the amendments that we have on the table, and then I will just listen to the shadows. There are some amendments which aim at clarifying the scope of the directive, especially when it comes to contractual agreements. I think that bringing contractual agreements in the scope of the directive, when these are the only way to include a medicine in the health insurance system and are imposed on the marketing authorization holder, is a sensible idea. I can also support Mrs. Vergnaud's amendment adding a definition of biosimilar medicinal products to the text. Concerning the deadlines, there are some amendments which like to increase the deadline for generics to 30 days. I support this since it appears that some member states feel that 15 days is extremely short. As I have previously said, our objective here should be to have realistic deadlines, but which complied with afterwards. I also think that we should keep the differentiation between medicines which need technology assessment, health technology assessment, and those which do not, and for which the whole process can be shorter. The same goes for the deadlines in Article 7 for the inclusion in the health insurance system. There are also quite a few amendments which I will strongly oppose, as they go against the very objective of this directive, which is to ensure transparency and timely access to new medicines for European patients. I do not think we should come back to the tacit authorization principle in Article 3, for instance. This is even in the current directive. The same goes for the obligation to motivate the decisions or to simply take them according to objective and verifiable criteria. This would open the door to arbitrary decisions. Adopting such amendments, in my opinion, would be a step backwards and would send a very bad political signal, which would contradict what we have been saying until now, namely that we want more transparency and we want Member States to respect the provisions of the directive. In Amendment 60, I am not sure I have understood the wording. The word temporary is added. However, for me it is not clear whether price freezes should always be temporary, or whether the statement of the reasons is to be made only when the price freeze is temporary. If the idea is to say that prices should only be frozen on a temporary basis, then I can go along this line, but not in the second case. Maybe Mrs. Pitikainen or Mrs. Bera can clarify a little bit their intention. Amendment 75 by Mrs. Prendergast goes further than the Commission's proposal in the transparency requirements by creating an obligation to publish a declaration of interest involved in the pricing and reimbursement decisions. Since these are important decisions and that there may be conflict of interest, I think this is a good idea. On Article 8, I think at this stage it is not a good idea to delete the whole article. It is true that the Commission's proposal goes a little bit too far. This is why I propose to delete the financial sanctions. In the spirit of compromise, I would propose to accept the deletion of the damages too, as proposed by Mrs. Prendergast, and insert the referral to the competent body in case of non-respect of the timelines. Coming to Article 13 on non-reassessment of elements that have already been assessed at the marketing authorization stage, many colleagues wanted to bring biosimilarity in the text. This is something which I could support, as I have put in my Amendment 99. The only thing that my amendment adds is the orphan drug designation, which Mr. Fox has also included, but only in recital 14. Since Amendment 99 seems to be broader and encompass all the ideas in the other amendments of this article, I would like to ask you to consider supporting this amendment and also the change in the title, so we don't end up with a shopping list in the title. Another important article we have a certain number of amendments is Article 16 on the notification of draft measures. This article is quite important because it would give the Commission the necessary information about these measures and would allow it to initiate an infringement if is necessary. I hear the concerns of the Member States and some colleagues who fear that we are placing too many burdens on Member States. This is why I would propose to keep the article with a softer wording. I have proposed also some simplification myself in the draft opinion, namely the fact that Member States are not obliged to write the comments of the Commission before adopting those measures. Last but not least, several amendments to price transparency. First of all, this directive addresses the transparency of pricing decisions and not the prices themselves. The actual pricing is a national competence. Moreover, price transparency, even if it sounds like a good idea, may have some unexpected effects on the sustainability of the healthcare systems. I will explain very shortly and I will finish. Price transparency would probably result in the convergence of prices in the EU, which is in line with the idea of the single market. However, unfortunately, we don't have a single market in medicinal products for the simple reason that our healthcare systems are different. The incomes in our member states are different, and consequently the price that patients pay for some medicines is different from some member states to another. This allows poor member states in our union to set lower prices and the richer ones to set higher prices. If the prices were to converge towards the highest price, this would certainly affect access to medicines in poor member states. If, on the contrary, price transparency generates a downward pressure, especially due to the external difference in prices, then it wouldn't be profitable anymore to place medicines on the EU market, which will affect access to medicines for all of us. The only winners of price transparency are the parallel traders, with the consequences that we are experiencing already in some member states, which is the shortages in the member states where we have low price. This is why personally I wouldn't support the amendments calling for price transparency. For the same reasons, I have tabled an amendment myself encouraging member states to make a more reasonable use of external reference pricing, namely by selecting those member states with a comparable income. I will stop here, and I would like to thank once again to all colleagues who contributed to the text, and hope tomorrow we'll have a successful vote. Thank you very much.